The third thing is that when you're creating these vibrations, there are some things that you don't want to take away from the vibration that's being created. And so over gripping the tools, I believe, and people can check this on their own, but I believe over gripping the tools actually can detract from the vibrations that are created. So for example, when I'm using the Antler Striker, I don't grip it like this. See how hard the grip? That's a really hard grip. I don't grip it like that. Why? Because I want to have a loose. Look at this is a really loose kind of flipping grip. Why? Because when that impact is made, I want everything to vibrate, and then I want those vibrations to be transmitted through the stone as the break occurs. So I don't over grip the punch, and I don't over grip the striker. And if you don't know that, and the person's watching, they try to do the same thing, they might over grip everything, and maybe they won't be able to detach a flake. So this is something that a person needs to develop a feel for. And anyway, so loose grip, and a person can even do a few follow-throughs, mock follow-throughs before actually striking, just to get the trajectory and all that on path. Okay, so now here's the piece I'm working on, and I got one side really pretty nicely flattened. On the other side, I still have a humpy area here. So I believe if I'm going to have to bring this edge in to get that to work on that humpy area. And I'm probably going to have to bring the whole edge in. I have a thin edge already. So this edge is so thin that if I were to directly use indirect percussion at this point, I could actually snap that edge. So I don't want to do that. So I'm going to be careful so that I can chip down the edge a little bit by pressure, and then I'll turn the edge further with indirect percussion. Now, as you can see, I'm chipping down the edge by pressure, and then there are some stout spots where maybe the platform is a little thicker, and it's not going to be ideal, right? It's not. I may not be able to chip it with pressure. So actually, I have two stout spots right now. One is here, and one is here. And so in the other areas, my chipper's doing fine, but not in those areas. And that's okay, because guess what I'm going to do? If you guessed indirect percussion, you're right. Those stout spots, I'm going to work around them when I turn this edge. Okay. And I'm going to come back, and by the time, and actually, I think in the Ready site report on Clovis snapping, you actually see this this process of the nappers drawing in the edges, except for around some stout areas, and then maybe they did something else. Anyway, okay, so now I'm turning the edge because I want to get to this hump there, but I also produced two stout spots, which are, it's really minor. So now we have these isolations. Okay, now okay, there goes one, and it's a real fine flake. So I don't know if we can see where the trajectory is. Okay, here's another one. Oh, almost hit the edge with the striker there. There we go. Okay, there's the other one. I happen to see that drop. Okay, so now this edge was just turned, let's say, we could say by 80% by pressure and 20% by indirect percussion with the same tool, which is known for from innumerable archaeological site reports. And in some cases, I believe, in a number of cases, deer tines have been implicated in indirect percussion work by archaeologists. Now, how would people know that, or why would they think that? Well, they don't just come up with these ideas out of thin air. They actually use studies, like experimental studies, to show the effects of pressure flaking, indirect percussion flaking, etc. on bone tools, antler tools. Okay, now I turn this further by pressure, and the edge is becoming thicker, so it's now becoming a little harder to pressure flake, which is okay. So my last round was, let's say, 20% indirect percussion and 80% pressure flaking, and now I might just have the flip opposite. I might just have 80% indirect percussion and 20% pressure flaking, because now this edge is thicker, and also now you can see as I turn the edge I'm flaking away. So I'm flaking away from the edge more. So in order to do that, I change both the angle of the flaker and the angle of the strike. So for people who think the KISS method, what do they call it? Keep it simple, stupid method always applies, should always apply. Well, I disagree, because I know in some kinds of napping you can use the same angles over and over again, but this is more of a three-dimensional work, and so by making these alterations you actually can change the three-dimensional contours of whatever you're working on. And also you can work on start on the weaker spots and work towards the tougher spots, sort of like by so it's sort of a gradual work sometimes. Okay, now that's for the most part been turned by indirect percussion. So now, the reason I'm doing all of this is because, as mentioned before, I have a high spot here, and I want to drive into that high spot to further thin this point. So, okay, now in looking at the profile, here's my high spot. This edge is still almost the wrong side of center line at this point. So, okay, we'll remove that flake. I'm going to try to remove that flake. So I want to try to turn this a little further so I can drive back in and hopefully drive underneath the hump in order to effect thinning. Okay, now I think I'm going to start at the end here where it's thinner and continue to bevel coming up, and that way when I flip it I think I'll have a better chance of getting underneath the Let's see if I pull back now. So I probably got a better isolation there. Okay. 2. See, I'm making a little better bevel. Now I'm going to come in at an angle a little bit because you have to watch the surface of those platforms, the surface contour. What works really nice is a slightly concave platform. Okay, now let's see. I'm going to upgrade to this heavier flaker. Let's see, hopefully this will work. Not quite. Try again. There we go. Okay, wow, look at that. Look at that. Okay, that went to past the center line. If you can